Alrighty, y'all. Hello. Welcome back to, Americans versus European countries in this case, their experiences and some kind of interesting minor differences and maybe not talked about as much differences that they have experienced. I think some of these lesser known and less spoken topics when it comes to, minor cultural differences and day-to-day stuff, I think are really fascinating and, hit more close to home than some of the obvious stuff.
Hot take about Americans and Europeans that I know is going to make some people really angry. If you're new here, I changed my entire life moving from LA to Paris and search for love. But in addition to searching for love, it really was to change my lifestyle and really put myself in an environment where I can be a huge melting pot, meet new people, new friends, and just put my career to the test in a new environment. I am actually here in the south of France, specifically in Cannes, so I've been having a lot of conversations, and I have observations about how it is that you have interactions and conversations with people, and it's very different between the countries. I often find when I'm interacting with Americans, there is this sense of insincerity. It doesn't feel sincere. It feels fake. It feels like you're being judged. It feels like there isn't really depth in the conversation.
Yeah.
So when I was living in LA, a lot of the time people would tell me that they felt this. They were interacting with people in LA, but it was always hard for me to discern because I lived in LA for 13 years. That was part of my lifestyle, interacting with people. And in fact, I would always make sure that I was friends with people who were very sincere, very genuine, and just overall authentic people. Coming here.
Yeah. To that, I want to make two distinctions. She is right, especially like modern America, even versus 20 or 30 years ago. And then two, her experience with kind of fake-ish people, I think, is maximized when you go to a big city like, LA, Los Angeles, or, New York City, Miami, places like that. They're just big, and they're crazy towns, right? Like, they're even known as, not finding sincere people. Everyone's kind of fake and hollow and trying to be famous and stuff. They're even known like that here in the U.S., right? They're not considered like friendly places. I think overall, the people of America, even though there's so much wrong with this country nowadays, I think the people are still the backbone of it, and I think people are generally awesome here, right? Everyone's just trying to make it, survive, and there's some really genuine, authentic, people that are worth knowing here, but it is getting harder and harder to find. So you do have to really pick your friends wisely, and for most people who are in touch with this kind of thing, you end up not having many friends at all because there's just not, I hate to say it, there's not that many people worth investing your time in. There's a weird kind of thing nowadays that I've seen other people talk about as well, and I very much relate to. A lot of people just don't spend time with each other and share a lot anymore, right? Like, people don't even come over to our house. Like, it's just very weird. This is something I've witnessed a lot with people of all ages, including adults, when I was a kid, but now it's so rare. Like, people don't hang out and be a part of each other's life anymore. It's like very rare here in the US, at least for people around 25 to 40 years old. We might have grown up with it, but now we're not experiencing that as adults. I'm assuming this is probably different elsewhere in the world, and maybe that's still a thing. I've heard it before that people get together and, have social gatherings and go have a beer and go eat and have fun in European countries. But, people do it here also. It's just a lot more rare, and it's really weird. It's kind of a shame.
France, but specifically my experience in the last 3.5 months in Paris, I find that everybody that I interact with is sincere.
See, that's pretty
They are very
interesting.
authentic. I oftentimes am finding... One second. Oftentimes find I am interacting with folks who are in Paris, and I mean, this could be anybody. I mean, a Swiss person, it could be a Moroccan person,
right?
Really anybody, but they usually are European. They are much more sincere. They're not fake.
And she's, realizing this within only 3 months, right? I mean, that's that apparent that is different socially. And I would argue Paris is one of those more polarizing cities of the European continent, kind of like LA or New York, right? I would assume Paris would be a little bit less friendly and inclusive and stuff compared to some more, heartwarming cities and smaller towns in different countries, right? But she's still seeing more sincerity and just different interactions in Paris compared to the U.S. It's kind of crazy.
The interaction. Say that they don't like something, They genuinely don't like it. If they say they like something, they genuinely like it.
Yeah, people are real. They're not fake, right?
And sincerity. There's a fakeness.
That's true.
Oftentimes feel really uncomfortable in the conversation because they are insincere. So there's like a judgment. With Americans, there is this need for status.
Yeah.
So even when
Big time.
think that they are judging another person or sizing up another person when they're having conversations with them. It's subconscious. It's not something.
That whole keeping up with the Joneses is like the saying here. That is plagued the U.S. And I feel like that's much more apparent here than it would be per capita in other countries. I'm sure it exists elsewhere, but it is maximized here. It's rare that you find someone that doesn't care about that here. Most people are just trying to compete with their neighbors, compete with people on the internet that they don't even know, right? Trying to please people they don't care about. It's really odd. People in so much debt here and trying to buy the flashy cars and the flashy clothes and watches, and a lot of people can't even afford to do so. Put it on credit and then they get in debt, and it's crazy. That is definitely, when I think of that problem, I think of the U.S., right?
That you're doing at a conscious level. They are asking questions because they're trying to size up how they're going to treat you. That is not the case in Europe.
No, I imagine not.
Simply asking you questions because they just want to know you, and that's what makes it different. Anyway, I had to get that off my chest because I had just left an interaction, and 3 people who were American, 1 who was European. You could just see the difference in how the trajectory of the conversation was different when talking to the European versus talking to the 3 Americans. 3 Americans are asking really in-depth conversations about things all around status. The European is asking questions about what I do, what I'm about, what I enjoy. The difference. Anyway, if you've gotten this far, you know what you think.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with her. And look, I haven't traveled all around, but I've seen a lot about it, and I can imagine that people are going to be different, right, abroad. But I could definitely speak for the American side, and even talking to people from within America rather, that are from different places, you can just tell a difference, right? Again, like there's a lot of good people here, and there is a lot of like sincere people here. It's just they're harder to find, right? Like people are generally friendly, maybe more often here, right? Like you hear people waving and smiling everywhere here compared to other countries. But when you have actual interactions, they might be more sincere in those other countries, even though they're not as surface friendly with the smiles and all that stuff. Whereas here, they might smile and stuff, but people really don't care, right? Like they really are just putting on the smile or the fake attitude or the fake service in restaurants and all that stuff. But in reality, there's a motive behind it, and it's usually not to get to know you and be a great friend. Those are hard to find here. When you find them, you got to hold on to them because there's not much else out there. It's definitely like a thing that's gotten worse in modern times here. I feel like, people are obsessed with their phones and social media and status, and it's just taken over people's priorities. My bro worked with U.S. and French folks abroad. When he left, the Americans cried, saying they loved him, but the French people actually kept in touch. See, that's telling right there, right? You can kind of see the difference. In Europe, we don't care about status or wealth, even if you are the president or a billionaire. It's about how you are as a person. Yeah, I think that's overall awesome, and that's how it should be. And it's just something a lot of Americans would have to get used to because we're not surrounded by that as a whole as often. I'm from Finland, and I have neighbors that I've sat with countless of times in our gazebo having red wine, and I don't know where they work or what they do for a living or how much money they have. This is a great comment because this is like the epitome of what she's saying and what people say about different countries coming from America, right? This is kind of beautiful to hear, and this is just not the case. People's first question always seems to be, where do you work and what do you do and kind of how much you have, that type of thing here in the U.S. It's just like how it is. So hearing this is like totally foreign to me, but sounds refreshing.
I worked 142 hours this week and still got an email asking if I could squeeze in a little extra. Oh, yes. In France, we call that exploitation. Also burnout. Also Tuesday. You guys don't grind? Oh, I grind. My espresso beans. And I take a 2-hour lunch and a nap. How many vacation days do you get? 38, not counting holidays. I just took 3 weeks off to stare at the ocean. I took half a day to get a tooth pulled. And my boss said, hope you can still hop on the 4 p.m. call. Did they charge you? Yeah, and they emailed me a survey after. How would you rate your pain on a scale of 1 to you should have had better insurance? You guys treat work like a religion. No, religion gives you Sundays off. You ever think maybe your country just replaced happiness with productivity? Yeah, we romanticize being miserable. If you're not exhausted, People think you're lazy.
Not working hard
if I
enough.
work past 4 p.m., my coworkers stage an intervention. I once sneezed during a lunch break, and my manager said, "We'll make up the time later." You okay?
Pretty
I
much.
clapped when my plane landed. I'm not okay. You're one circle back away from snapping, huh? I told my boss, no worries at all, as I felt my soul leaving my body. Do you even know how to relax? I relax aggressively. Like I have 9 minutes before guilt kicks in. Bro.
This is crazy because, of course, this is a skit, but it really, I hate to say it, it is not far off. It's not far off. This is painfully accurate. Painfully accurate. Yeah, work culture here, guys. Help. It is rough. And I just remember it's one of the craziest things that I just assumed everyone had to work this hard worldwide. And then I keep learning over the years how work culture is in different countries. And I'm mind blown. Like, oh my God, no one else goes through this in this way for this, like their whole life. It was one of the most eye-opening things that I've learned on this channel, right? A few years ago, learning what other work cultures and work, rights and all these things that y'all have that Americans don't by default. It's just freaky, man. It is freaky. If you're not exhausted, people think you're lazy. This is the most accurate and depressing statement. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It is weird how people treat work and overworking in the U.S. And to beat it all, we still live paycheck to paycheck. That is the depressing truth of modern times. Just in the last 5-6 years, this has become a reality for so many Americans. There are Americans making $100,000 a year, which used to be rich, and are still living paycheck to paycheck. We are in serious trouble here. European travel outfit versus American. There's a European, I can already tell. And there's the American. Immediately, comfy clothes, bright colors, right? That's not always the case, but sometimes the case for Americans. Got the Coke, got to have the soda pop, right? Got to have it at all times. The big athletic shoes. I'll say the American outfit looks more comfy, especially if they're going to be on a train or just traveling for a while, a flight, whatever it is. They look like they're on a train, but he'll be more comfortable. But he doesn't look as sharp. This guy looks much, proper, much more proper. At least I think. Do I have these wrong? I don't think I do, right? Let's confirm it with this one. Europeans versus Americans at the airport. Okay, we have this lady. Okay. Yeah, see, this has got to be the American right here. So nice shoes, right? Nice outfit, pretty put together. Nice bag, all that stuff. Dressed nice. That's the European. And then American, very casual hairdo, the baseball hat, right? That is so accurate. Guilty. Loose, baggy pants, what look like almost pajama pants. Let's just call them sweatpants. The soft, boots or Uggs or whatever. Yeah, there's a difference. You could just tell the difference, for sure. Europeans are just better dressed and overall better and happier people. It seems to be the case. In Europe, people have been taught that dressing nicely means being respectful to others, like making an effort because everyone you meet matters. Yeah, see, I think that's a healthy attitude out on it, a healthy outlook. And that is definitely not the case for most Americans. I'm too European to understand leaving your house in sweats. You might have a heart attack then if you saw how many sweats were out in public in the U.S. Okay, so this guy is an actual kind of scientific description about the whole water debate that we always see, right? On why Americans drink so much more water and are carrying water, and Europeans are like, what are they doing?
I'm originally from Germany, from Europe, so I can tell you the big difference between the United States and Europe. In Europe, we have only spring and mineral waters. We don't have purified waters at all, and therefore our waters are more hydrating because it's loaded with minerals and electrolytes, what your body needs to actually process water. Second, that whole idea that you have to carry a bottle of water with you all the time is completely nonsense. Your body is very sophisticated, and when you're slightly thirsty, just drink some water. But you don't have to drink all the time water. That's true. Third, the 8 glasses per day is completely nonsense.
Yeah,
that idea came from the 50s, and they were talking about liquid intake, never talked about water intake. So you can actually eat water as well. When you're eating some healthy food, there are tons of water dissolved. Yeah. So please, don't believe in water companies who are telling you have to drink water all the time. Water is not just water. Cheers, my friends.
What are your thoughts on this? I feel like this could vary person to person and, of course, region to region, country to country. I don't have a doubt in my mind that the average American would be more obsessed with drinking water when it's hot out and stuff than maybe the average European, even no matter where country they're from. Now, of course, it's very, hot in places in the U.S. in summer. Of course, it really is hot in places in Europe as well. That could go for really anywhere. So it's not like the only hot places are in the U.S. That's ridiculous. It could be hot many places worldwide. And it just seems like a lot of people, even in hot countries I could think of around the world, aren't really carrying water bottles around. It's usually only Americans. So I don't know if we were just sold like one of our many weird ideas or maybe straight up lies that, our nutrient, food pyramid and nutrition info and doctor, whatever BS they're spouting out. There's been a lot of interesting things we can say over the years that we're told that other countries don't follow. So yeah, the water thing is always pushed at a young age. Like you got to drink water all the time. And it's just funny to hear that other countries don't subscribe to that.
This is the #1 difference between American physique and skinny European croissant/cannoli physique. You see, decent abs, but his chest is smaller than my 6-year-old cousin's. And the arms, what the fuck is going on here, buddy? You see this? There's no mass. Why don't you guys have mass?
Because Europeans slim, like model features.
Slim model features.
You can.
What if
you
someone?
can,
What if I came up to you after a night at the club? What do you
It
think?
doesn't matter. Like
gonna
I
do?
go with the girls you can never get with.
Europeans,
It's a fact. Europeans get more girls than Americans.
not a fact.
Oh,
You
man.
don't need to be the fat buff guy. Okay,
Okay, what cracks me up about this, skit or not, right? Of course it's a skit, but it is funny. You can see the physique difference, and that's not always the case, but it definitely is a case a lot of the times. What's funny also is the European is taller. That's also funny because Europeans are usually, there's some tall Europeans, I'd say on average, I think I've seen in statistics than here. Of course, there's tall people here, but maybe just not as much as you would see in certain countries. But also, like, notice how loud the American was talking and how not loud the European was talking.
I'm a slim European physique
This looks
guy.
fat and buff to you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Let's see what fat buff guy will do to you if you say 1-2 wrong words after the club, buddy. This is the #1.
I also love how, again, the differences, right? The European seems pretty calm, right? And just conversing. An American, like 2 or 3 different times, goes into like, hey, what if this happens? Like, they're just ready to like fight all the time, right? Again, funny, not always accurate, but a little bit painfully accurate as well. There's some truth to it.
Here to stir the pot on this whole Americans are uneducated thing, but I have a hot take. And for context, I'm a German-born citizen, but I moved to the US when I was like 5 and I grew up here. I go to Europe pretty often. My family's there. I studied abroad there. I try to go like once every year to 2 years, basically. So a few weeks ago, I was in Amsterdam, and one of my good friends is French. And if you know anything about French people, they love to argue and debate for fun. Like it's like a sport for them. So naturally, like we're having this conversation and French people feel very passionately about Americans. Like any of the worst stereotypes that you can think of about like Americans being like loud and uneducated and improper and uncultured, like French people stand on business. Now, my hot take, right? Because the thing is, the average American college graduate that I know easily working a full-time job makes what like a lawyer in Europe would make, right?
Okay.
So let's say like you're making 70 bands a year, right?
So let's let her get to more, but let me just say something that comes to mind though. First of all, the American education system, including getting a degree and then getting a decent job, like she's implying, costs so freaking much, right? Remember, public universities cost a lot of money. Private ones cost even more. Specialty ones cost even more. Talking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Got to go into heavy student debt just to get any degree in the U.S., right? Now, we're also at the height of people going into debt, student debt, and not even getting a job when they graduate in the field that they studied for. Yes, some people do, but alarming rate of people don't, right? That's been a huge complaint. And so many people, of course I wouldn't name them, but so many people I know have fallen victim to this. They've paid for a student education and they're not working in the field they studied for. That's a crappy scenario that a lot of Americans are going through. So anyway, if they do end up in the field they're supposed to be in, that they studied for, and they're making 70 grand a year, like she says, well, in this day and age, this video is very recent, but in this day and age, that doesn't go far. That's pretty scary, right? Our cost of living and inflation is ungodly. Also, if it pays more than the European equivalent would, and of course that probably varies by country, how come a lot of Europeans don't feel like they're drowning in debt near as much as they are here, right? There's an obvious lifestyle difference. There's a cost difference. A lot of things I've looked have actually ended up costing much less in European countries, even the more expensive ones, versus here in the U.S. It's pretty alarming, but that's I hear what she has to say.
That is like astronomical in Europe. Like if you're looking at France, Spain, Austria, like that is what doctors and lawyers are making.
Also, is that true? Like, tell me if she's accurate here or
I know
way
a lot
off.
of like 25-year-old, very uneducated people that are making that or even more in the United States.
Sure.
And don't hit me with that whole, but they have like free healthcare, free education thing. Because in the grand scheme of purchasing power,
I'm gonna hit
really
you with that.
Doesn't matter. Most of the people working full-time jobs in the States have insurance through their job. So I think
we'd have to, it's hard to even look up, right? Again, my experience, people I know, yes, I've had jobs that hooked you up with insurance. I had one job that really hooked you up 100%. It was freaking awesome. But then again, you know, people have had jobs that don't do anything, right? You get insurance, but you still have to pay for it. And then there's you've heard me complain about you got to be a network and you got to hope that this is covered and that procedure is covered, right? There's always issues, and then things aren't covered and you're hit with surprise bills and you got to dispute this and appeal that. And it's like a mess. It's just a complete mess here. And not everyone does have insurance through their job. That's not true. And if you have to get insurance, well, like I do on your own, the cost is literally an arm and a leg. It's painful. You don't even want to know. Again, if they make less in another country and then they pay taxes to fund the insurance, well, guess what? It works out better because here we still have to pay taxes, but you don't get insurance. You have to find that yourself, and then you have to pay a huge amount, right? So I pay a lot of taxes here in the U.S. I just feel like I don't get anything back. I have to pile on cost after cost after cost on top of what I pay in taxes just to have what the average European would have already done for them.
In my experience, we're
take.
Getting better healthcare services than like the average European, in my opinion.
That's her take.
If you look at like their general health. Again, this is my opinion.
Okay.
So the point that I made to her was that like Americans are not rewarded for being like cultured or studying humanities or, you know, understanding like political landscapes and forming their opinion or being well read. Like we're not rewarded for that. What we're rewarded for is having tangible skills that can turn a profit. So the average college graduate that I know, like, you know, we're well read here and there. It's few and far between. But they know how to analyze data, create a spreadsheet, close a deal, communicate effectively, that type of thing. And I know like money is not everything, but in America, like it kind of is. So
it is.
It's not that I think like Americans are uneducated. It's just that like we're educated in different things.
Yeah, that's true.
Than Europeans are educated in. And
I don't think Americans on average are as well-rounded as people from other countries are. So, you know, again, it sounds funny, but like, let's use easy examples. Like people can point out random countries. Yeah, I'm going to trust a lot better a European. We've seen videos on quizzing random people, right? Like I think people will have a better chance of finding Serbia or Cyprus on a map in Europe than they would over here, right? How many Americans... So many Americans don't even know where England is or where Spain is. Like they get them all mixed up. You know what I'm saying? That's just the truth. People have more concentrated intelligence, you could say, here. Whereas the broad intelligence, especially of anything outside of our own borders, is severely lacking on average here in the U.S. There's always exceptions, of course. There's smart people everywhere. There's not so smart people everywhere. The values and the certain intelligence and the obsession with work hours and money and degrees and all this stuff, it's pretty crazy here in the U.S. It's very money driven, very corporate.
What would be considered more valuable? I think that's super debatable.
All right, I am going to cut it there, actually. I hope you enjoyed that. I think this was kind of a good one. A little more experiences and discussion about what it's really like in some different, perspectives and some different kind of day-to-day, experiences when it comes to the U.S. and different countries within Europe. Now, this was just a few. I mean, there's a lot more out there. And of course, it's different living in different parts of Europe, different parts of the U.S. You get the idea. But I think these are pretty educational and interesting. I would love to see more on this kind of topic at a future time. I would love to hear your comments and your experiences down below. And if some of these takes were on the mark or a little bit controversial, a little bit inaccurate, let me know. That being said, I really appreciate you being here, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. Until next time, y'all. Catch you later.